Welcome back to the Green Light Special, Football Monday on the Great 1230, and Super Bowl 55 is set. Mahomes versus Brady. Boy, did we have a lot to get off our chest as far as what took place on Championship Sunday, headlined by the fact I'm not going to kill LaFleur for that kick, that decision to kick. Now I'll kill him for not throwing in a running play on 1st and goal from the inside the 10. I'll kill Rodgers for not doing what he needed to do to make it 4th and manageable and making the decision easy for LaFleur. Coaches have more plays on 4th and goal from the 3 rather than 4th and goal from the 9 or inside the 3. I think Rodgers gets inside the 3. Hell, I think Rodgers scores if he runs that football. That was a bad decision. You could look at a lot of decisions in that game. I'm not going to kill LaFleur for kicking that ball after going nowhere on 3 plays. It meant something to get 3 points down 8. I think people are looking past that. This was not an analytical move. I just understand where he was coming from. I really do. And when you don't have a call, you can't go for it. And when you don't have a timeout to burn, remember, LaFleur knew he needed to keep all 3 timeouts. It makes it incredibly difficult. That's not why the Packers lost the game. The bad call, and yes, it was a bad call based on how the ebb and flow of the game went. It did not decide the game. The bottom line is that Pettine and LaFleur throughout the game, the situational football, it killed him. Killed him. And look at Rodgers for a second. How about Rodgers getting the ball 3 times after back-to-back-to-back Brady picks? 3 points total. That's where you lost the game right there. And you can look at Rodgers too. That was a legacy drive for Rodgers at the end. And after scoring 3 points after those picks, it was a bad job. That's just all there is to it. It's not about LaFleur and kicking that field goal. I'm sorry. And he is getting hammered. Hammered. I thought it was more unforgivable, in fact, that Sean McDermott kicked the field goals inside the 5-yard line against the Chiefs. You have to know what type of a game you're getting yourself into when you just watch Mahomes basically put the turf toe story to bed, put the fake concussion story to bed. Mahomes was Mahomes. The Chiefs were a machine. You have to know, if you're McDermott, that the field goals are never going to do it there. On the flip side with LaFleur, in that second half, Tom Brady looked like Jameis Winston, okay? 3 picks, passer rating under 50. He was misfiring late in the game. It was way more reasonable to me for LaFleur to believe that his team could get the ball back with basically 4 timeouts against Brady in an offense that was predictable and at the time was struggling, rather than a McDermott situation where you knew this was a track meet. You knew it. Now look, I'm not saying I love the LaFleur decision. It's so tricky. I don't love it. And you have Rodgers sitting there, MVP. I get it. I get the frustration. But if you're talking about what was more unforgivable, it was McDermott not kicking. It was McDermott not going for it inside the 5. You have to go for 7 against the Chiefs. Whereas I get where LaFleur was coming from after the sequence that developed leading up to that 4th down, which, oh, by the way, was partly LaFleur's fault. He's not off the hook for that. I'm just saying I think LaFleur's off the hook for deciding to kick the field goal. That's all I'm saying. It's an unpopular opinion. Tweet the show. It's at The Switty Show if you disagree. Call the show. It's 419-214-1230. As we chat, let's get to the breaking news out of Saturday night. The Detroit Football Lions, have been forced to choose a direction. Matt Stafford, 13-year quarterback for your Detroit Lions, wants out. He made this clear before they made the GM hire. He made this clear before they made the coaching hire. And Matt Stafford is gone. Matt Stafford's career is over, and while we don't want to celebrate, running Matt Stafford the person, Matt Stafford the player, out of town, let's start with item number 1 here. This is great news. This is unbelievable news because this means that the Detroit Lions now are picking a direction. And again, it might not be by choice. From all accounts, it looks like Stafford went to the management, and management said, okay, even if we disagree with the guy, what exactly are we going to do? Watson's going to force his way out of Houston. Rodgers can force his way out of Green Bay if he wants to. Matt Stafford can force his way out of Detroit. That's the industry, that's the league, that's the times as far as professional sports. And what was basically planted by the NBA is now kind of transferring over to the NFL. But this means great things for the Detroit Lions organization because now, and I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but now you're in a situation where you're no longer going to be a middling team. You're no longer going to be wasting Matt Stafford. You're no longer going to be wasting fans' time with these bozo wins, late in the game in Atlanta, late in the game in Washington. trying to justify taking Jeffrey Okudah at pick number 3. There's going to be no more of that. Because now this franchise is going to do what it's going to really need to do for, I don't want to say too much time, but definitely the last year or so, dating back to that Okudah pick in the 2020 draft. Matt Stafford still has some football left, there's no question, but when it comes to the future of the Lions organization, this is a divorce that needed to happen. And while we would have been okay with the Lions choosing this direction while retaining Matt Stafford for a year, folks, this is even better. Matt Stafford is an asset. Matt Stafford still has 2 years on his deal at when you look at the economics in the NFL, just look at Mr. Dak Prescott's upcoming contract, and you'll be able to readdress the Stafford thing. Stafford, it was a good deal at the time. It's been a good deal ever since. It's been fair and it's been reasonable when you compare it to the economics throughout the league. So it's an asset. The contract is an asset. Stafford's relatively healthy, and while his best football might be behind him, he could put that narrative to rest very quickly if he goes to the right spot. And that is number 2. And we'll get to that. But if you're wondering why the Lions settled for Matt Campbell, and if you're wondering why, frankly, they gave him a 6-year deal, it was because this was on the horizon. If you were wondering why Eric Bieniemy may not have a head coaching job yet, there's a chance he probably wanted nothing to do with this job. Much like other GMs, the hot reports about snagging Snyder away from Seattle, bringing in Colbert away from Pittsburgh. You think they're going to come into a situation like this? I don't think so. Not from those organizations. I don't know. Maybe there was some merit to those reports, but the bottom line is this was a crappy job. This was not a desirable job, and I wouldn't believe for a second a guy like Saleh or a guy like Bieniemy really truly wanted this job. As a result, they get Campbell in there for 6 years. Why? Because this is a teardown. Oh, but the Lions have been rebuilding since 1957. Ha ha ha. This is a teardown. I know they haven't built anything up to this point, but this is a teardown. You are now going back to step 0. You are going to be drafting a quarterback. I'd be stunned if they don't look into drafting a quarterback in the first round. And ultimately, while they might be some tough years, and it might not work out right away because there's a lot of luck involved and you got to press a lot of right buttons. And, it's Detroit. No one wants to play for you. People respect your ownership, but ultimately it's a losing ownership. It's not an easy place to just wave a magic wand and turn everything around. But this is good news because the team, by choice or not, I don't really care, frankly. I don't. The team is choosing a direction. That's number 1. Number 2 is what's next. Look, as far as the Stafford destinations, I think there's one easy, predictable, perfect spot for Stafford, considering that the cap is going down and considering you're not going to have a million teams in these I think it's going to be a sweepstakes, but you're not going to have a million teams in this bid for Stafford because of the cap going down. And you look at New Orleans and you look at San Francisco with Garoppolo. They're going to have to figure out what to do with him. There's too many situations where there's going to have to be too much digging to get out of cap hell with COVID killing this cap. That's number 1 with the contract situation. But number 2, there's going to be suitors. And I think the best suitor has to be Indianapolis. It makes too much sense with Reich. It makes too much sense with the cap space. It makes too much sense with the roster, the win now roster. That's a place where, if you want Matt Stafford to prove a lot of the naysayers wrong, myself included, and I love Stafford, and I'd go back and select him number 1 a million times out of 1 million, not just because that 2009 draft was putrid, but because he was worthy of being a number 1 pick and he lived up to it. But I've been hard on Stafford at times, and some Lions fans refuse to be hard on Stafford. This is coming from a guy that's hard on Stafford, and this is coming from a guy that puts him nowhere near Canton. I think Stafford can go to Indianapolis and turn that team into a Super Bowl team. I do. More than Rivers would have. Rivers was borderline a liability. Matt Stafford's nowhere near a liability. His football play is an asset. His contract is an asset. He's 33, yes, but I think there's a window there for success. 3, 4, maybe 5 years of success if he goes to Indy. I know Washington's a popular team. There's money to spend there. I know Denver is I would be stunned if they want to go in the direction with Drew Lock. I don't know about Denver either, but they have a little bit more wiggle room than some of these other teams. New England, despite having a complete rebuild on their hands, I don't think the Jets are going to be in the mix. But you can maybe sell me on Belichick if he's going to stay around New England. He's not going to wait around for a long teardown. No, he's going to want a quarterback here now, and he can't get one where New England is in the draft, presumably. So it's a good conversation. And as far as the direction for the Lions go, I think this has Justin Fields or the kid from BYU, Wilson, written all over it. I think this has first-round quarterback written all over it. The only way I can see the Lions sticking on the right path here based on the developments and Stafford wanting out. If you're going to sell me on a path that doesn't include taking a quarterback in the first round, I think that path is shipping Stafford to the Saints and making sure you get Weinstein, or, and I would not be high on this at all, or if someone in the building loves Locke, get capital, get compensation, and make Denver throw in Drew Lock. And at least you have something to tell me you have something to look ahead at the position. Will it hit? I don't know. Will I love it? I don't know. And I like Winston a hell of a lot more than Locke. I think Winston has a chance. Not sure if Locke does. But when it comes to not selecting a quarterback in the first round, that's something you could sell me on as far as bringing in another QB via trade. No, they're not going to be in the mix for Watson. They don't have enough to trade for Watson, and I don't think it makes sense to trade for Watson because there's too many holes, and there's not enough money to spend. 10 holes on defense. I could argue 11, but I'll say 9 to be nice. 9 holes! 9 holes on defense. And you want to talk about sacrificing the future for Deshaun Watson? Now, look, Watson's a better player than Stafford, and that's not arguable. One's elite, one isn't. One's going to the Hall of Fame, one won't. But when it comes to trading for Watson, you have to... So, for instance, I'm a Jet fan. You think I want the Jets to trade all 4 of their number 1 picks and Quinn and Williams for Deshaun Watson? I don't, because it would leave you nothing left. So you can have Deshaun Watson, but you can also have 6 to 7 to 8 win seasons, and I don't want that either. So forget about Watson. I think this has Justin Fields written all over it. I think Fields can be overrated as hell when you're talking about moving up to number 2. But if the Lions were to make a move and to secure a quarterback, I wouldn't hate that. Because it would show me that they're serious about finding their quarterback. It would show me that they're in love with somebody. And it would show me, again, what has been determined over the weekend. This team, whether or not they were forced to or not, and they were, but who cares? Because they're picking a direction. And after we had to watch Jeff Okudah walk up there and put on a Lions hat last April at pick number 3, and we had to stomach that, I think this is great news. And I know some people think this is a bad move, and I know some people are coming away from this, putting Matt Stafford in Canton. Can we take him out? Can we take him out of the Hall of Fame? Is that all right? I think there's a lot of statements that have come out since this news is broke that have just sounded completely absurd about Matt Stafford. And again, I like Stafford. I think he's the best thrower of the football that the Lions have ever had. Again, I would pick him number 1 in that draft, and really in most drafts. A lot of drafts. Pick one a million times out of a million. But we really got to be careful. And I know some of it's Dan Orlovsky. Dan Orlovsky, a guy that's friends with Stafford, is never going to give you the real truth. But for Dan Orlovsky to go on the air this morning and to say that if you're a team that should be in the sweepstakes for Deshaun Watson, you should absolutely be a team that's in the sweepstakes for Matt Stafford, that's just dead wrong. I mean, if you're a team like Miami, or forget Miami because they're on the verge of winning 11 games. If you were a team like the Jets, that is flipping just a complete rebuild. I mean, you got 2 superstars, foundational players, but other than that, you don't have a whole hell of a lot. You got money to spend and you're building through these draft picks. You really think the Jets are in a position to go get 33-year-old Matt Stafford and expect it not to be a complete waste of my time? Meanwhile, the Jets have every right to go after Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson's 25. Matt Stafford's 33. Deshaun Watson, again, super duper star. Matt Stafford, very good player. Very good. Not a superstar, not a star, very good. Watson, super duper star. That's number 2. They come out of this, if you're Dan Orlovsky, to put Matt Stafford. First of all, he called him a Hall of Fame player. That's wrong too. I mean, everyone's putting this guy in Canton. Everyone's looking at the Lions' faults and saying, "Oh, poor Matt Stafford. Imagine if Matt Stafford didn't go here. How many championships would he have?" Guys, did you watch the 2013 season? Did that just all of a sudden not happen? Thanksgiving Day, route Green Bay, 7-5, everything's looking perfect. 2 games up in the division. What could go wrong? Last 4 games, Matt Stafford, 16 points a game, missed the playoffs. Playoff game against Dallas, bad call or not. Lions up 20-7, lose the game. Look, I have great appreciation for Stafford, and it is sad it didn't work out. I don't want to twist it and turn it. It's sad. It's very sad. And the organization let him down. But to act like this guy is, first of all, act like he's a Hall of Fame player, and then to act like he is free from all blame over the years is just dead wrong. I'm sorry. And I'm not saying that Matt Stafford doesn't need the bouquet of flowers thrown at his feet because He's been a great warrior. He's as tough as they come. He was a good Lion, and when you factor in the history of the Lions organization, he was a great Lion. But I got 95% of the things I read, the things I hear, start or end with referring to this guy, bar none, no doubt about it, no arguments taken, the best Lions quarterback of all time. Now look, he's the best thrower of the football the Lions have ever had. Might be the toughest son of a bitch to ever put on a Lions uniform. But what exactly did Bobby Lane have to do just to get in the argument? What did he have to do? Win 3 straight titles? Get to 4 straight titles? What did Bobby Lane have to do? How much more did he have to do to get in the conversation? I don't agree with that either. Matt Stafford, no question about it. No arguments taken. Best Lions core. Can we talk about it, please? So that's another thing. On top of the Hall of Fame, on top of freeing him from all blame, I'm not going to go there. While I still understand the appreciation, and I still understand the sadness from a standpoint of the Lions doing absolutely nothing with this guy who, when you look at that draft, all things considered, hit the nail on the head with the number 1 pick, and what do you have to come from it? Nothing. So the Canton thing bothers me. The best Lions quarterback of all time, it bothers me because it's a bit much. And I hate to make that the storyline. I hate to make that one of my nuggets when talking about the Lions and the positivity and having to choose a direction now. I love Anthony Lynn as the OC. Deuce Staley, one of the most highly regarded assistants in the league, 10 years as a pro, 10 years as a coach, and they hired Deuce Staley. There's so much positive vibes, but I got to go online. I got to go on Twitter. I got to listen to talk radio and hear this Matt Stafford player as a Hall of Fame player that was free from all blame. Guys, Matt Stafford in a big spot, whether it was up 20-7 against Dallas, whether or not it was in a prime position to win the first division championship in eons, he failed. And it wasn't all his fault, but he failed. That's my point. And I don't want to go crazy on Orlovsky because Orlovsky has always been like this, and he's always going to be like this. He's not going to tell the truth about Matt Stafford. And you can still tell the truth about Matt Stafford and say nice things. But to go out there and put this guy in Canton, and I know the Hall of Fame lets everybody in, but, I don't know if the Hall of Fame's letting in Matt Ryan. I don't know if the Hall of Fame's letting... what are they going to do, let in Cousins? He's not a Hall of Fame player. He's got time left, and there's still a lot that's unwritten, and I think he can go to a big-time team. And I hope it's the Colts, because ultimately I will be rooting for Matt Stafford with a team built around him. But to act like this guy is free from all blame, I have a huge problem with. What I don't have a problem with is this team being forced to choose a direction. It's not all on Stafford, and it wasn't all about Stafford's ability to play at this time. It was about where the Lions were at as an organization. If you're wondering why they hired Dan Campbell, and if you're wondering why it was a 6-year deal, and if you're wondering why they end up with Brad Holmes, who probably was a year or 2 away from getting a gig, now you know. Stafford wanted out, and frankly, it's just another reason to believe that this was not a desirable job. Bieniemy, Saleh, Dan Campbell at 6 years is all you need to know. But listen, I want to make this about the positives. The Lions have made good hires. The Lions are on the right track. And I don't know if it's going to result in wins sooner rather than later. But what I do know is that this is the right direction. And there's absolutely no argument against that. The Detroit Lions and Matt Stafford, the divorce is coming. And it looks like it had everything to do with Stafford. And from that standpoint, look, I blame him for 13. He didn't win the game in Dallas. He didn't do anything in Seattle. And he was never on any great teams. And remember, he didn't have Calvin Johnson like all these years, remember. Calvin Johnson didn't have Stafford very much, and Stafford didn't have Calvin Johnson that much. So it's not like he had this great weaponry the whole time. I get it. But from a standpoint of Stafford telling management it's time, can't blame him. Big news over the weekend with the football. Not only Championship Sunday, not only LaFleur, not only Rodgers, not only Brady, but Matt Stafford and the Lions, a huge topic of discussion. Destinations, compensation. It absolutely, positively must start with a middle to late first-round pick and go from there. As far as Matt Stafford goes, that's where our football discussion carries into our final break here on the Green Light Special. Back to close things up, you're listening to Nick Switala. Don't you go anywhere.